Now, before you go off firing cold emails and doing all the things that we're going to talk about later that actually are going to get you meetings, deals, and sales for your company, the first step is getting organized. And the first part of that process is building your hit list.
If you're not familiar with the term hit list, it's basically a list of every prospective partner, client, customer, whoever you're trying to reach. And you're going to use this not only to manage your outreach, but I even use my initial hit list to manage the entire deal process. Here are some important components that you want to have on your hit list. First, company name. So the company that you're prospectively doing a deal with or a partnership with. The last time you spoke to the person at this company that's your current contact, what that activity was on that last day of contact. So was it an email? Was it a meeting? Was it an in-person meeting or a phone call? This type of information is really important to take note of, and it'll just make it easier to manage the entire deal process. Who the specific stakeholder or decision maker, and this can be multiple people at that company is that you're talking with, what their contact information is, and then lastly, what I call the prioritization mechanism. So this is that size of opportunity that we brought up earlier. And the reason that this is so important is because there are certain deals that are going to drive 100 times more value for your company than others. And you want to be sure that you're spending your time most effectively at all times. So I like to within my hit list literally have this right in front of my face. So at all times, it's just a nice little reminder to make sure that I'm spending my time wisely. There's a few options that you can use for your hit list. There's sales tracking software. So Salesforce, HighRise, Sugar CRM, there's a ton of them out there. There's another tool that my friend Andrew Dumont built called Stride. And this is a little bit better for low volume, high leverage opportunities. So let's say you only have 100 deals in your pipeline. This actually is a great tool for those type of situations. And Salesforce, I mean, those type of tools really scale. I mean, you could have thousands of leads and opportunities in there, and it can get really sophisticated if you want it to be. Lastly, you can just use a spreadsheet or a Google Doc to manage this. And honestly, I'm super old school. I just used a Google Doc, and this is literally a picture of an example of what my hit list template looks like. And it's very simple. Just company name, last day of contact, what that activity was, some type of scale to measure the size of opportunity to make sure that I'm spending my time wisely. The stakeholder contact name, and again, this can be multiple people, what their email address was, and the phone number if I want to include that. And ultimately, really what it comes down to with all this stuff is it's not about the tool. It's about your diligence following the system. If you can manage it on a simple Google Doc, that's great. But if you want something more sophisticated, go ahead and opt in for the Salesforce or the HighRise. And generally the reason that I don't like those tools is I find them rather clunky. They're often built with the sales manager in mind for them to run reports on number of meetings their team's holding, who has the most calls. And quite frankly, I don't need that sophisticated metrics and analysis on top of my hit list. I just need a place where I can have all my contacts, the last time I reached out to them, what that context of that outreach was, what their information is. That's really all I need. Now, when I go about building my hit list, I think the most effective way you can do it is using batch processing. If you're not familiar with batch processing, it basically means doing all the same tasks at once to avoid task switching. So what this looks like is I'm going to go ahead and find all the companies I could potentially work with first, and just focus on getting that company section of the hit list filled out. After that, I'm going to go ahead and find all the stakeholders at those companies. So who is the person that likely is managing this particular initiative at that company? And I'm going to just focus on filling out that section for each company. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and find all of these stakeholders' email addresses and their phone numbers if I need to. And the reason that I do it this way is it's just the most efficient way to do it. If I'm on LinkedIn, I want to stay on LinkedIn. If I'm using tools like Reportive and Mail Tester that we'll go over later to find contact information, it it's more efficient for me to just continue to use those tools and execute processes than to go from find a company, find a stakeholder, find an email address. There's a lot of task switching there, which can result in lost time. So I personally think that using batch processing when building out this hit list is the most efficient way to do it. So let's talk about ways that you can do the first step, which is identify companies. And I have the first one already here because it's pretty familiar. Hopefully, is Google. So literally just Google the terms that would help identify particular companies you might want to work with. Let's say that you're trying to find people that sell to florists and sell software. So literally just Googling the term florist management software, whatever it is. Super simple concept. I'm not going to go into too much depth here because it should be pretty straightforward. The next place I go to think about companies that I should work with is my personal network. So there's a lot of people that might be in the same space. They might have familiarity with the industry I'm working in. I just send these people emails and ask, hey, do you know anybody who might be a good fit to reach out to or any companies that should be on my radar? Add them to the hit list after I get the feedback from people that I already know. Now, this is a little less obvious, but your competitors' sites are an excellent place to mine for companies that you could potentially do deals with, specifically in their partners or clients section. These are all people that you might be able to pick off. And honestly, there's a lot of times where there's latency in these sections where people that you're competing with have partners or clients listed there they don't even work with anymore. So don't let that deter you from trying to reach out to these companies, because again, you have to look out for number one. And if you think that you have the superior product, you shouldn't feel bad for a second about going after somebody else's existing partners or clients. If you're doing product integrations, like the example that I showed with single platform, we're looking for sites with dining information. A great place to go is similarsitesearch.com. And basically what this tool does is you can type in a specific site and then find a bunch of different sites out there that you might not have been aware of that have similar content. So for us, I remember searching Yelp.com and finding just a ton of sites that I wasn't even aware of that ended up driving a ton of value to the businesses we work with. A great example of that is Menuism. I had no idea that Menuism existed, but it's because of the SEO that the site has is one of the most popular places people go to find restaurant menus. We ended up doing a API deal with Menuism, and again, it drives a ton of value because of the traffic they receive. I would have never found this site if it wasn't for me finding menuism.com via similar site search. Another resource that you might want to check out is manta.com. Manta.com is a great tool because it allows you to apply filters to businesses that often aren't available on other places that you might go, like Yelp or Yellow Pages. If you're selling to places that physically have or trying to do partnerships with places that have physical storefronts. So you see here that I typed in, I believe it was just fitness center or CrossFit. And what this allows me to do is take advantage of these advanced filters on data that just typically isn't attached on a lot of other business directories. So things like company revenue, number of employees, who the owners are, where the location is. These are all just excellent pieces of data that you can really use to build a more sophisticated and targeted hit list. Quora.com. If you're not familiar with Quora, it's not only an amazing place to mine biz dev opportunities, but just a great place to find valuable information. It's essentially a question and answer site where anybody can ask any question, attach it to a specific topic, and have members of the community answer it for you. What you see here is a question that just shows how you can use this for biz dev. So the question is, what apps companies are focused on the restaurant CMS market? So the background here is this person might be looking to partner with restaurant CMS platforms because they have a complementary offering and they want to do a channel partnership. Now, what they could do is go out and search Google or pan other resources to find all of these particular potential partners, or what they did here is just ask a question and let the community essentially answer and provide these companies that it might make sense for them to partner with. This is an extremely efficient way to fill out that company section for your hit list. An incredibly great place that I didn't even include on that bullet section is LinkedIn. And if you're in business development or you're new to business development, you're going to find yourself just spending a whole lot of time on LinkedIn. Here's a few ways that you can use LinkedIn to find potential companies to partner with. 1, existing prospects' previous work histories. So if you already have a few prospects, maybe you started out with a friendly strategy, or you just knew a few companies that you wanted to have on here and decided to go ahead and fill out that initial stakeholder. You want to look at those stakeholders' previous work histories. A lot of times people get super industry specific with their careers and end up working for competitive companies, throughout the life cycle of their career. So if they worked for a company that you're going after now, maybe they worked for a very related company that was in the same industry before. So you want to take a look at the stakeholders' previous work histories to maybe find some new companies you wouldn't be aware of. Another place you want to go is look at the company followers on LinkedIn. So in addition to individuals, companies can have pages, and many do have pages on LinkedIn. And a lot of times people follow their competitors to stay up to date. So you can essentially use those followers as a source of implicit data for who might be somebody that you might want to partner with. And I mentioned that company page. One valuable, on the right-hand sidebar, one valuable resource that they have is a people also viewed. And there's a lot, what you have to realize is on LinkedIn, it's a lot of recruiters, biz dev, and sales people. They're doing the same exact thing that you're doing. They're trying to find companies and individuals to partner with, sell to, whatever it is. And they are all viewing similar companies. So you want to take advantage of this people also viewed block here on the right-hand side of a company page to find other potential people that it might make sense to partner with. Okay, so you found companies and you filled out that initial company section on your hit list. The next step for you is to go ahead and find the person at that company who's responsible, or at least you think is responsible, for the particular initiative relevant to a partnership. And at this point, you're really just looking for the stakeholder's name. And the reason is because you're going to be approaching by email first. And once you have their name, you can actually use that using a variety of ways, which we'll cover soon, to guess their email address. And even if email doesn't work, you just want to get the name to have somebody to call into. Now, it's important to be aware that the stakeholder and the decision maker are often two different people. Sometimes they're the same, but you don't really know who the decision maker is going to be until you start engaging with the company and having conversations with them to really understand how decisions get made, the processes, and who are all the key stakeholders that are responsible for pushing things through. So this is the progression that I use to basically fill out this hit list with stakeholders before actually reaching out to them. And again, I'm just looking for names here. And I'm going to go through each one of these, but there's definitely a rhyme and reason to the ordering of my progression. And how I basically go about this is first LinkedIn, then the corporate website, my personal network, an informational cold call, press releases, Twitter, comment section on relevant articles, and former employees. Okay, let's dig into each one of these and just real quick talk why I go about it this way. The progression ordering is just based on what I find to be most effective, quick, and non-obtrusive. And I just try to strike a balance between all three things. Effectiveness is most important because if I don't get the right stakeholder, then all of my outreach could be completely fruitless, because a lot of times when you have the wrong person and you're trying to communicate with them, especially when you go in cold, they'll just see it as irrelevant and not even forward it along to the right person. So effectiveness and getting the right information is most important. But after that, I want to do this in an efficient manner. I want to do it quickly. And there's certain things that take longer than others. For example, doing an informational cold call in the appropriate way can get me the name of who I'm trying to reach out to in 30 seconds. Now, it might take me 10 minutes to try to get that person's name by scanning press releases online. So, there are ways that are just generally faster than others. Now, what you need to balance this with is trying to be as inobtrusive as possible. And there are certain things, and in cold calling is one of them, that can interrupt somebody's day. Reaching out to somebody directly on Twitter can be a little obtrusive, can be getting into their space that they're not used to communicating with. So you want to try to balance these, and I think all of the ways that I mentioned can be done effectively without being overly obtrusive, but it is just something to be cognizant of as you go through the particular ways to find these stakeholder names. Okay, so let's dig in. So first place I go is LinkedIn, and specifically I go to the LinkedIn profile description. The challenge is that on LinkedIn, a lot of people just don't have a real descriptive profile. For example, this one here, a regional director at Travelzoo. I have no idea what specific focus this person has, and as a result, it's really hard for me to determine whether they're relevant to my what is often very particular relationship focus. A much better example is when you can find LinkedIn profiles of company employees that specify exactly what somebody does. So, for example, for one of the guys that I used to work with, this is what his LinkedIn profile description says. And it just gives me exactly what he is responsible for, which is building and managing the entire customer experience. So if I was trying to do a deal with single platform, or I was trying to sell software that optimized customer experience, this gives me insight that this guy is literally the exact person that I need to talk to, or at least the perception that he is definitely an influencer in this sphere and can get me to the appropriate decision maker if it turns out that it's not him. So right now I want to do a live demonstration on how you are actually able to go about using LinkedIn to find these stakeholders. Okay, so I'm just going to show you right now how I use LinkedIn to find stakeholders in this initial hit list building phase. And I'm going to use the company that my friends work at called NewsCred and pretend that I'm trying to find somebody in marketing there to talk about a co-marketing partnership. So first thing I do is type in the company's name in the search box up here. And there we go. There's NewsCred. So once we get to the company page, we're going to want to go here to see all. So see all the employees that are on LinkedIn. And then when we get here, you have some search facets on the left-hand side. I'm just going to go ahead and click the advanced search facet. And in keywords, I want to search marketing. And this is going to isolate everyone who has marketing as a keyword in their profile that works at NewsCred. So the first people that are going to come up are people that I'm connected to. So my friends Kyle and Andrea. And then it's going to start showing me marketing people. So marketing strategy. Okay, this person has online marketing in their past. Director of Merchandising Strategy, Integrated Marketing. Here we go. Director of Marketing at NewsCred, Alicia Ann. And when I go down, I look at her profile, and I see in the job description it describes exactly what she does. Amazing. So it looks like, given the fact that she manages all these elements of marketing, that she would be a good initial stakeholder to reach out to and broach the topic of a co-marketing partnership. One common thing that might happen here is there might be a number of candidates that might seem like the right person, and this is especially true when we're talking about bigger companies. So there's a few things that you can do in order to disarm these situations and find that right stakeholder. And one of my favorite things to do is use the skills section and the implicit data there to understand what somebody's focus is. If you're not familiar with the skills section, when you scroll down on somebody's LinkedIn profile, you can see different skills or expertise that people in their network have endorsed them for. Now, when you look at this particular example, who was just listed as a marketing director, by the way, do you think this person is responsible for social media or managing the advertising budget? Well, considering 12 people have endorsed her for advertising and one person for social media, my money's on the fact that she manages the ad budget for this company. There is just a ton of ways that you can use this implicit data when there's not available in the profile description to really hone in on who might be the specific person that you're looking for. Another place you can go is just reviewing previous job descriptions. So again, people often have career focuses where if they were the sales director at a last company, they'll be responsible for sales here. So this is just the profile of, again, somebody that I used to work with, and it looks like they were the vice president of sales, and then they managed the customer experience. If I was trying to figure out what that person did as a regional director at Travelzoo, and I had no other options of who to reach out to, my guess is that they're doing something with sales or merchant services because that's what they did before, and often people are hired for roles that they have experience in. Now, if I can't find anything on LinkedIn, the next place I go to find a stakeholder is the company website. Usually on the About Us or the Contact or the Team section, you can find specific people who you might be able to reach out to. Here's an example of just an our team photo of on intercom.io, a great little email company in New York. And if I wanted to figure out who I should talk to about product, well, it looks like Colin used to be the head of product at Challenge Post and another company, and John's also engineering, does engineering. So if I want to get in touch with somebody who does product, these are probably my guys. And again, I found this just by simply going onto the company website. Another excellent place to go is your personal network. And let me show you how I lean on my personal network in an efficient way to figure out who the appropriate stakeholder might be. Again, I go back to LinkedIn and I start off with a company search. And what I look for here is specifically whether somebody I know has a lot of connections to that company on LinkedIn. Here's an example of what that looks like. So I searched the company Vistaprint, and if you see in the top little thumbnail there under Dan, John, and Byron, my friend Chad comes up. Now, that signals to me that for whatever reason, Chad has a relationship with Vistaprint. Maybe he worked there. Maybe he's done a deal there. Maybe he just is dating somebody and ends up going to the happy hours and becoming friends with everybody that works there, whatever it is. Bottom line is this is a signal to me that maybe Chad might know who the appropriate person to talk to is. Now, when I identify this strategy, the next step is to email that person. And here's an email that I sent to Chad when I was trying to get in touch with somebody at Vistaprint. Hey, amigo, I'm trying to get connected with somebody at Vistaprint who's on the team that works on their website builder product to talk about integrating single platform. Would you have any insight into who the right person or even department to talk to might be? It's a huge company, and any direction here would be awesome. You know, in other news, how's summer been? Just a personal anecdote. Chad gets back to me a few minutes later. Yes, I worked on the product team, and I'm really good friends with the product manager and director of online services group. How do you prefer an intro? It can be that simple, and I just want to talk about some specific things in this email that you want to be mindful of. I was very specific, not only the fact that I wanted to get connected to this company, but why I wanted to get connected to this company, because this person you need to give this person the context for why you're reaching out so that they can potentially direct you in the appropriate direction. Notice how I didn't ask for an introduction right off the bat here. I simply asked for who the right person or even department that I should be looking to should be. And the reason that I did this is it's just a lower friction ask, and the lower friction asks make somebody more likely to comply. So, you know, it's just not as risky for Chad to tell me who the right department is or who the right person is as it is for him to just go ahead and make an intro, because I don't know the context at this point. I don't know the context of Chad's relationship to that company. So those are just a few things you want to keep in mind when you send this type of email. And, you know, this is how I tend to lean on my personal network in identifying stakeholders for my hit list. Now, if you still can't find a stakeholder name, a very simple thing you can do is just do an informational cold call to the company. It's important to understand that at this phase, the goal of the call is to simply find out who's in charge of the specific initiative that your relationship will be focused on. You're not trying to sell the person, pitch the person. You're just trying to find out the name of that person so that you can ideally go in through email. And how to do this is just, again, using LinkedIn, make an educated guess who oversees the relevant initiative so that you have a name to call. And then when you do that, find the corporate number on the website, have a script written out, and then call that, try to get in touch with that particular person who you think might be the decision maker is to verify whether they are responsible for the particular thing you're interested in. Here are things, again, to not do if you do an informational cold call strategy. Don't try to pitch the person on the spot because you're interrupting them and they're just not primed to be receptive. We'll go through how to broach if you do end up getting connected directly to the decision maker very soon. But you don't want to pitch them on the spot when you're just doing an informational cold call. When you do get in touch with somebody at that company, realize that they probably get a lot of phone calls. And most people approach phone call or cold calls as a monologue where they just do all the talking. You don't want to do this. You want to try to engage them in a dialogue as quickly as possible. So that's why I think that you want to ask them a question very early on so that they stop and realize that you're just looking for a little help. You're not trying to sell them something. And when you take this kind of approach, people are more receptive and more likely to give you the information that you're looking for. If you don't have anyone to call, meaning you don't have this particular name to call into, I recommend just calling someone in sales. These people are so happy that somebody's actually calling them versus them going outbound that they'll just reveal any and everything. I've had plenty of success when I couldn't find any name to call, didn't know necessarily the right department, just calling somebody in sales and just figuring out who I needed to talk to or even what department I needed to focus on. So let's go over a script here, and I'm going to basically just read this in full and then go through each section individually and describe the thinking here. So hi, Scott Britton from X company here. I was hoping maybe you could help me out. Pause. Looking to connect with a person who manages the social media marketing at your company. Any chance you know who that'd be? Now, at this point, they're going to try to either get off the phone and give you their information or respond to you that they don't know who the right person is. Let's just go ahead and say they give you the person's name. Oh yeah, that'd be Jim. Great. I just want to shoot them over some information about how we've helped other companies like yours do whatever the great thing that you do is. Any chance you'd be able to provide me their email address? Thanks. Well, let's go through this line by line and describe the method to my madness. Okay, first sentence. Hey X, Scott Britton from X company here. Notice how I don't say hi, my name is. Generally, hi, my name is what every single person who's cold calling says. And what happens is that creates a trigger for this person to basically think, oh, this is a cold call, and just turn off their brain. I know when I get cold calls and I immediately recognize it, I'm essentially in the mindset of, okay, I'm not going to think about what this person's saying anymore. How can I just politely get off the phone as fast as possible? So you can accomplish the same exact thing where you're announcing yourself and giving the context of the company that you're calling from just by saying your name and then the company that you're from. Now, the second sentence alludes to the point that I brought up earlier, that you want to engage them in a dialogue as fast as possible, and you don't want it to be a monologue. So the question I like to bring up is, or imply rather, is I was hoping maybe you could help me out. And then I'll pause. And the pause usually results in them a few seconds later going, yeah, sure, or okay, cool, how can I help? And now what you've done is you've created a dialogue because this person is now participating in the conversation. Next part. This is where you essentially want to just state exactly what you're looking for, which is an understanding of who the stakeholder is. So a simple statement like, I'm looking to connect with the person who manages whatever the relevant initiative to your partnership is. Any chance you know who that'd be? That's simple. And at this point, basically, a few things might happen. They might say, yeah, sure, that's whoever it is. And honestly, this happens more frequently than you'd anticipate because people generally don't like to stay on the phone long with strangers. So the easiest exit strategy for them is to literally just give you the name. And when they say that, typically, when they give you the yes, typically what I like to do is save myself a little bit of time in the future by asking them to just give me their email address right then and there. And this way, I'll know I'll have the correct one, and then I don't have to go through the process of finding this person's email address, which we find out later. So you can enhance the compliance rate of giving the email address by offering up something valuable before you ask for it. So one way to accomplish this is to say something like, great, I just want to shoot them over some information on how we've helped other companies like yours grow their user base, maximize engagement, whatever it is that your particular company does. Any chance you'd be able to provide me their email address? If they can, great. If they can't, it doesn't matter because you've already got this person's name and you know the company URL, which will allow you to guess their email address later. And just, again, make sure that you give them incentive to give the email address. So shooting them over information about how you've helped similar people is valuable. Flat out just asking for their email address without any context isn't necessarily going to result in the same level of compliance. What if they say no? What if they say, you know what, I don't actually know who manages that? What do you do then? Well, a simple thing you can do is just ask if there's someone who might know who the right person would be. Remember, the goal at this point is just getting the name. And again, I like to sprinkle in the fact that I'm going to be sending them information that's potentially valuable just to optimize the chance of them complying and giving me somebody who might know the right person. Let's talk about another tactic that's worked really, really well. And that's calling and asking for someone that used to be the stakeholder. So how this typically unfolds is you find somebody on LinkedIn and it turns out that they used to be the right person you needed to talk to, but you can't find the person who replaced them. So what I do in this situation is basically ask for that person who I know used to be the right person. Hey, can I speak to whatever that person's name is? And you can expect them to say, I'm sorry, but they no longer work here. And you fully know that that's probably what they're going to say. Well, I know they used to manage the specific initiative that's relevant to you. Any chance you know who their replacement is? Let's talk about why this can be so effective. Because you're referencing somebody that used to manage something and that you know that, you're essentially signaling familiarity with the company. Oh, well, how did they know that this person used to manage this thing? I guess they must have worked with us before. This type of signal separates you from the people who are just carpet bombing and cold calling blindly, which means there's a higher likelihood that they'll give you the name of the right person you need to talk to. I actually sometimes even start out at very big companies. Well, even just start out looking for the person who used to be the right person. And you can do this on LinkedIn very simply by seeing all employees of a company, searching for your keyword, and then highlighting the past company facet, which you'll see here. And this isolates people that used to work at that particular company that have that associated keyword in their profile. And this is an excellent place, again, to find ex-employees who might have been the right person. If the informational cold call doesn't work, or you're not necessarily comfortable doing that, another place that you can go to isolate and identify stakeholders is quotes from articles and press releases. Often when an article is published around a certain initiative or that features the company, key stakeholders at the company will be quoted. And how I like to identify these is just using Google and searching for things like the likely stakeholder's position plus the company name plus the press release. An example of that would be VP of Biz Dev at single platform press release. You can also do simply the position and the company and the word said to identify quotes, or even just the initiative at the company, because a lot of times there'll be reports that will feature that person's name. And just so you make sure that you get relevant recent results, what I like to do is use the Google search facet on the left-hand side. And the way that you populate the search facet is by first hitting news and making sure that you're searching using a Google News query. And then within that, you can isolate, okay, I want within the past week, month, year, a custom date range, whatever you want to be. And this way you make sure that you're getting the VP of marketing or VP of biz dev or whoever it is that's currently working there, not one that worked there, a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever it may be. Much along the same lines, it's not just within the articles itself that you can find the right people you need to talk to. Often if you go down and you look at the comments section, you can isolate and identify who the right person that you might need to talk to might be. Because stakeholders, if something is related within the article to their specific initiative, they will often be charged with responding to that inquiry directly within the comments feed. Just to kind of show you an example of that, on core.com, which is again which can be more or less thought of as a comments section in some ways. Somebody asked, is there a third-party library that provides access to restaurant menus? Well, the top answer is one from myself. And basically, if somebody was trying to get in touch with the single platform and needed to figure out who they should talk to about getting menu data, hopefully this answer would indicate to them that I would be somebody that could help them. So again, Quora, comments of articles, both excellent places to identify who the right person might be. Now, I don't like to do this, but something you can do is use Twitter to find these people. And I try to avoid this just because you're calling somebody out in a public forum, and it just is a little intrusive, and it can turn people off. And again, the first impression is very important. I have seen this work very well for small companies and startups, especially those that really love social media. In fact, often this can be easier than email because for companies and specific people that really just love social media more than email. So a simple tweet like, whatever the company handle is, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with the person who manages this. I want to send them something on how to improve engagement, how to drive new user signups, how to grow in this particular channel. And you want to make sure to include the why you want to reach out and make that a valuable context. And in here, that is, I want to send them something on X. So if you just asking for getting in touch with the person, they don't know whether you're trying to add something, give them something that's valuable, or trying to, sell them drugs or something not good. So you want to make sure to provide the context. The last strategy that's worked well for me is actually emailing somebody that used to work at the target company. And it's interesting because I just find that people are more likely to elicit information when they no longer work for a company. So if you see somebody on LinkedIn, maybe they were previously the right person or even just previously worked in that person's department, this is a great opportunity to basically find their new email address at their new company, email them, and basically say, hey, I was looking to find the person who manages this, and I thought, considering that you used to work there, you might know. And a simple, exact script you can use is subject line help, target company name with a question mark. And, again, I've been having difficulty identifying the person in charge of this and saw that you used to work there. Any idea who this might be? Any help is much appreciated. Believe it or not, this actually works. And I think it's because people generally want to be helpful and they don't perceive a risk when they no longer work for that company. So just to review, all the places you can find decision makers and stakeholders: LinkedIn, corporate website, personal network, informational cold calls, press releases, Twitter, comments section of relevant articles, former employees. These are all excellent places that you can go to find this person who you need to reach out to. Just to kind of sum up of where we're at. So hopefully at this point you have a stakeholder, and this person might be the decision maker, they might not be, but the idea is to have a conversation with them and then use this interaction to really understand who makes the final say. And when you understand that, you want to get that person on the phone and basically convince them that working with you is a great idea.